You must set a thief to catch a thief. Why I said this? Let's know the reason through the story, like a question of trust. Hello everyone, welcome back to the English literature class. Today we are going to discuss another 3 important lessons which are as follows: a question of trust, footprints without feet, and last but not the least, the making of a scientist. So let's buckle up for the class and please keep a pen and a paper in hand to jot down all important points of the session, as we would be covering important explanation of each lesson through the pointers. We would be covering short questions, extract-based questions, long questions. Besides this, I have designed a set of important and the most probable questions for you all, which is available in the form of DPP in the description box and the comment section. So without wasting any time, please tap the link given there that will redirect you to our PW app batch. Please join the batch. I hope everybody must have enrolled by this particular time. So please start practicing those questions and ace your exam like a pro. Before this, I would like to give you a very important update. Please scan the code to join our PW Foundation English WhatsApp channel to get all important updates related to your upcoming board examination. Now let's have a look at the topics that we are going to cover in today's class. We would be covering a question of trust, footprints without feet, the making of a scientist, extract-based questions, short questions, long questions, and lastly, we would be having a small recapitulation of the entire topic as well. So let's begin with the very first story, that is a question of trust. Before we proceed towards the particular lesson, I would like to share some important keywords with you all. Let's have a look at that. You must set a thief to catch a thief, as I just spoke in the very beginning of the class. A very important statement in reference to this particular lesson. And there is honor among thieves, very, very important, right? So these statements should be memorized, and there can be questions related to any of these in your upcoming board examination, right? So we would be understanding how to attempt those questions if it is related to these particular statements in the lesson also, right? Then we have characters like Horace Danby, who is the protagonist of the lesson. He is considered to be a very respectable man in the eyes of other people, but you cannot call this man completely honest, because he was passionate about buying rare and expensive books, right, through some agent. So due to this particular reason, he used to steal once every year so that he could collect enough money to buy those books, right, that he cherished. Then we have Lady in Red. Towards the end of the lesson, we would be knowing about this particular lady, right? So then we have Shotover Grange. Please remember the name of the villa in which he decides to commit the robbery this time, right? Now, so let's now try to understand and recall the entire story through these pointers, although I'll also be explaining you in detail as well. So let's see the very first point. The protagonist, Horace Danby, is a respectable locksmith. He was a lock maker by profession, but he was not completely honest. And the reason for this is that he used to steal once in a year, right, in order to buy those rare and expensive books through an agent. He was so passionate about buying those rare and expensive books, so he started collecting money every year in order to buy those. That's why he used to commit robbery once a year, right? Then he plans a robbery at Shotover Grange and carefully studies all the details of the house, right? So just because there was an article in a newspaper about this villa, Shotover Grange, and all the details, all the minute details were mentioned in that article, right? So he read all the details very minutely and carefully and planned his robbery accordingly. So as we proceed further towards the third point, I would like to explain you some major aspects of the lesson that will definitely help you understand the story in a wonderful manner. So let's have a look at those points. Horace Danby read all the details in that article very carefully, very minutely, each and everything about Shotover Grange, the villa, right? So he was waiting for a perfect day when he could commit his robbery, right? So he read all the details about the house. He started noticing each and every detail. He started going there, started noticing things there. He also got to know that there was a dog whose name was Sherry, right? So he started getting familiar with the dog due to his visit, so that the dog may not bark on the day of his robbery as well. So then there was a day that he found an opportunity when he comes to know that the owner of the house had already gone to London, which he had already read in the article. So that particular day, when he planned his robbery, when he decided to conduct that theft, right, servants of the house had already gone to watch movies and they won't be back in less than 4 hours at least, right? So in the meantime, he would commit his robbery. So let's see what happened the moment he entered into the house, right? He started looking for so many things. He started looking for valuable possessions as well. So what happens, there was a table on which there was a ball of flowers kept, right? And just because this Horace Danby had hay fever problem, right? Now there would be a question that would pop up in your mind, ma'am, what is the meaning of hay fever? So when somebody is allergic to dust and the smell of flowers, right, so we call it the condition as hay fever. So he started sneezing. So when he was about to open that safe in the living room, suddenly he started sneezing due to the ball of flowers that was already kept on the table, just because he had hay fever, right? So what happened? Suddenly he got to hear a voice from upstairs that stated, is it a hay fever or a cold? To which he spontaneously replied that it's hay fever, right? Then the lady comes downstairs and suggested him to see some doctor if he's really serious about his profession. So can you notice the irony and humor here? Right, because the profession that the lady is talking about is that of theft, right, or robbery, right? So she claimed herself to be the owner of the house, right, and she kept on threatening him, calling him a robber, a thief, and that people like him are a threat to the society, they are harmful for the society, and that he must be handed over to the police, and very soon she is going to call them, right? He got so frightened and so scared, just because he had already been to prison earlier as well. Then he started persuading the lady, he started convincing her to let him go, right? He started requesting him, right, stating that he just, steals once a year, and that too for a noble cause, that is to buy rare and expensive books through some agent, right? And he did not harm anyone earlier as well, and he's not going to harm anyone in the future as well. So the lady did not listen to his pleadings at any cost, right? Rather, she puts up one condition before him, that he has to open the safe for her, right? Horace Danby even got perplexed, he got confused. He asked the lady, if she is the owner of the house, then you must know the pass keys as well. To which the lady replied that she had forgotten the code, right? And just because her husband is out, the keys are with him, so she could not open that, right? So as a result of which, if he opens the safe for her, he would allow him to let go. So thinking that this, and just being scared about his past event in which he was already in sentence, right, for some time. So what happens, he immediately agreed to what she said, he immediately agreed to the conditions of, so he immediately agreed to the conditions of the lady, right, and agreed to open the safe for her. Then the lady just, took out a silver box from the table, and she took out a cigarette from that. So in order to convince the lady, he started lighting up the cigarette from his own lighter. So due to which he had to remove his gloves, had to take off his gloves, right? So now he had removed his gloves, but if we talk about his previous robberies, there was not even a single instance in which he removed his gloves, and as a result of which he never got caught, right? But this time he took off his gloves and he lighted up the cigarette, and then after he tried to open that safe for her, right? So what happens then, the lady also allowed him to leave silently, and that she will not tell anyone, and just she took that promise from this person, from Horace Danby, that he would not steal from now onwards, right? So then what happens, he opened the safe and got caught due to his fingerprints. Yes, exactly, this is what happened this time. He had opened the safe just because he had forgotten to put on his gloves this time. So he went from there, and for 2 days nothing happened. He started living silently. The police came and arrested him on a charge that he had committed robbery at Shotover Grange. He literally got sad and mad at the same time, and he started requesting the police to listen to him at least once, and that the mistress of the house, the lady, the owner of the house, had asked him to open the safe for her. So the actual owner in the meantime was already present there, the grey-haired woman, right, who found this man to be crazy, just talking all this nonsense, right? So nobody listened to him, and he was again sent to prison, and he started working as an assistant librarian in the prison there, right? So when anybody talked to him or in front of him about the phrase, there is honor among thieves, he gets actually very angry. So this is how the story comes to an end. So during the theft, he is confronted by the woman. I have told you the entire story that took place between these two points. So the woman threatened him to call the police, right? So then what happened? Later Horace is arrested because his fingerprints were found on the safe due to his carelessness, right? Due to his ignorance, due to his negligence. So he realizes that the woman was actually a clever thief who had outsmarted him, who had befooled him. So what is the lesson that we got to know here? The story highlighted that appearances can be deceiving. So the lady who he thought to be the owner of the house was actually a clever thief, right? Was actually a smarter thief. Now, let's understand the major themes: deception and misplaced trust. Just this, Horace Danby was deceived by the lady who was smarter than him, right? So the story explores how appearances can be misleading just because he misunderstood the lady to be the owner of the house, and although she was also a clever thief, right, who was a clever criminal like Horace Denby and easily befooled him, right? So it also highlights the irony of crime, showing that a thief who believes in honesty among thieves is himself deceived by another thief. Just like Horace Danby is being outsmarted, he's being befooled by that lady who was already a thief, who was smarter than him. The theme questions the idea of honor among thieves. Yes, definitely it puts a question on this particular idea. Why? Because he was being outsmarted by a lady who was already a thief. So that we can say that there is no honor among thieves, right? So this we could easily justify now. Let's now try to understand the message that the story conveys to its readers. So blind trust can lead to downfall. Definitely in case of Horace Danby, we have clearly seen that due to his blind trust in the woman who happened to be who claimed herself to be the lady of the house. So without even giving a second thought, he agreed to open the safe for her, which ultimately led to his own downfall. One should not judge people by their appearances or confidence, just like in case he got deceived by that lady in red, right? So the belief that criminals follow a moral code is actually false. It's just the only aim of a thief is to steal and nothing else, right? So intelligence without alertness and presence of mind still result in failure in case of Horace Danby, as we have seen. Although he used to plan his robberies, his theft in a meticulous manner, if he sees past records, but this time he got fooled. He got befooled by a lady of his own profession, right? Now, coming to the extract based questions, which are actually very, very important, let's understand how foolish people are when they own valuable things, Horace thought. A magazine article had described this house, giving a plan of all the rooms and pictures of this room. And it is through this only, through this article, when he got to know the actual place of the safe that was hidden behind a painting. The writer had even mentioned that the painting had a safe, but Horace found that the flowers were hindering him in his work. So please underline when you just, come across these lines while reading the text as well, right, from your textbook. He buried his face in his handkerchief. Why he buried his face in handkerchief? Just because he had hay fever, he was allergic to dust and smell of flowers. So he thought to commit that robbery by tying that handkerchief around his face, right? Then he heard a voice from the doorway. What is it, a cold or a hay fever? I have already explained you these things. Before he could think, Horace said, hay fever, and found himself sneezing again. The voice went on, you can cure this with a special treatment. If you found out just what plan gives you this, I think you better see a doctor if you're really serious about your work, right? Which work the lady is talking about? Theft. Now let's see the questions. According to the extract, Horace Danby was sneezing due to sudden allergy, due to prior infection, no. Long-standing disease, no. Nasal pain, no. Due to sudden allergy, due to just because he was allergic to the smell of flowers and dust. In the line before he could think, Horace said hay fever. The response was rehearsed, not at all, just because he was not expecting anyone there, right? Spontaneous and natural, I told you while explaining the incident as well. It was spontaneous. He was not hesitant. It was rapid and hostile, not at all, right? Now let's proceed towards the next question. The line from the extract that can be considered an example of sarcasm, right? So the hidden meaning is what completely opposite to the meaning that is found on the surface. Let's see how foolish people are when they own valuable things. Horace found that the flowers were hindering him in his work. You can cure it with a special treatment. I think you'd better see a doctor if you're really serious about your work. Definitely, without any doubt, this is the correct option. Why? Because the question says the line from the extract that can be considered as an example of sarcasm. So we have clearly seen this. And while explaining you the entire incident, I told you there is humor and there is irony in the particular incident, in this particular line, when the lady stated that if he's really serious about his work, then he should definitely consult a doctor. Alright, so I hope it's clear to all of you, right? Let's proceed towards short questions taken from CBSE question banks, right, and previous year question papers as well. Now, thieves, robbers and swindlers have no scruples, have no principles. They deserve punishment at any cost, right, no matter what. Comment with special reference to Horace Danby and the lady in red. So we already got to know that there were majorly two characters, Horace Danby being the protagonist, and the lady also played a very vital role, right? Because if the lady would not have been there in the story, the ending would have been different, right? Totally different otherwise. This question had been taken from CBSE question bank. Now let's read. The people who resort to morally corrupt practices should be punished no matter what, and they should not be shown with any sympathy at all. right? Horace Danby lacked righteousness. He was a corrupt person. Although he used to steal once a year, but robbery or theft committed once or 1,000 times is just considered same only, right? Robbery is robbery. Committing theft is committing theft, right? You cannot compare. It's like somebody who commit robbery once a year or twice a year to the person who commits robbery 10th or 20th or 100 times a year, right? So he deserved punishment for his actions. The lady in red too should be punished in the same way because both of them were thieves, right? And this lady in red even was more dangerous than this Horace Danby, right? So both of them should be punished. Next question, Horace Danby's experience with the lady in red taught him that there is no truth about the phrase honor among thieves. Definitely, this lady in red has proved the statement totally true that there is no honor among thieves. Just because he outsmarted Honest Danby, she befooled, she made him a fool by getting her work done and even made a complaint also, right? So he realized this thing that every person who takes to unlawful means is a criminal, right? Eventually, he realized his mistake when he started working as an assistant librarian, and he got angry at the fact that if somebody speaks these lines in front of him, that there is honor among thieves, right? So he does not have any principles. His experience with the lady in red taught him a greatest lesson of life, which is that there is no honor among thieves. All right. Next question. Crime is unpardonable regardless of its nature. So these three questions are related to each other. The idea throughout these questions remains the same no matter what. It's just that there is slight twist and turn in the question. The language has been twisted a bit, but the idea remains the same, right? Crime is never justified or pardonable. As I just told you, crime committed once a year or 100 times a year is just same. The thief should not be shown with any sympathy, right? Horace Danby's robbing a safe every year is an act of dishonesty. Although he used to commit just once a year, but he used to be into that practice. He used to commit at least once a year, but every year, right? So you cannot just, justify the frequency. It's like if somebody steals once or thrice or four times, right? So by robbing, he infringes upon other people's right to safety and security. This is unpardonable and deserves punishment, as he eventually met his end in the ending of the story, right? What suggestions would you give to your friend who is going to his grandfather's place? Important thinking based question. During summer vacation, so that a clever thief like Horace Danby may not steal or enter his house. So how would you suggest somebody? Let's see that. I would advise, this question is open to interpretations. Let's first of all understand, right? Whatever you think about the same, whatever reactions come to your mind, please mention those, but in a proper manner, right? I would advise my friend to lock all doors, all windows, and keep all the valuable possessions at a safer place. For example, in a bank locker, if you talk about the jewelry, that must be kept inside the bank locker. There should not be anything which is valuable that should be there in the house so that it may not get stolen, right? So installing strong locks, alarms and CCTV cameras would be helpful. He should inform trustworthy neighbors to keep an eye on the house so that if anybody enters, if anybody even tries to poke inside the house, so definitely he or she may get caught. Now, describe how Horace Danby planned his work. He planned his work very meticulously by reading all the details in the article, right? So what happens then? He wore gloves to avoid any fingerprints and carry tools to open the safe very quietly and smartly. Eventually, he got caught due to his own negligence and carelessness and by removing those gloves from his hands, right? Next question. How can you say that Horace Danby was good and respectable but not completely honest? This question had been asked twice in 2018 and 2019 as well. Just because he was a lockmaker by profession, right? And just because he was passionate about buying some rare and expensive books through some agent, so he used to steal once a year, right? So he had lived a quiet life, did not harm anyone. However, now in contrast, he was not completely honest. Why? He was a thief. He broke the law by stealing money, which makes him character morally weak despite his polite nature as well, right? So you cannot call this person completely honest, right? Now, what do we conclude from reading this particular chapter, from discussing all the points, all the major aspects, short questions, long questions, questions from CBSE banks as well? So, what do we conclude here? That how even a skilled thief can be outsmarted or befooled by someone who is smarter than him, who is more cunning than him. Horace's confidence in his own abilities led to his own downfall, right? When he got so overconfident that he will never get caught, right? The lady who was from his own profession, who was from the same profession as his, outsmarted him, she befooled him and got him caught by the police, right? So this tale, this story reminds readers that dishonesty leads to unexpected consequences no matter what. So I hope this is all clear about the story and you are able to understand the whole story in a wonderful manner. Let's now proceed towards important long questions that are likely to be asked this time in your question paper. So let's have a look at the very first question. What does the story tell us about judging people by appearances? This is quite evident in case of Horace Danby as well. We clearly come to know that appearances can be misleading. Horace Danby believes the woman who claimed herself to be the owner of the house, right? So he was suspicious, although still could not recognize her properly, right? But she turns out to be a very clever thief who had outsmarted, who had befooled Horace Danby just because she was smarter than him, right? Coming to our next question, which was asked in CBSE 2025. How did the lady in red outsmart Horace Danby? How? First of all, we come to know that she claimed herself to be the owner of the house and she behaved in such a confident and a very clear and authoritative manner that even made this Horace Danby a fool, right? So let's see. She was calm, confident and authoritative, which made Horace Danby believe that she was the actual owner of the house, and she threatened him to call the police and claimed she needed the jewelry from the safe, right? Believing her, Horace opened the safe for her, and which led to his own downfall. He got into trouble because of the reason. Had he not opened the safe for her, he would have saved from that particular situation, right? So thus the lady cleverly used Horace's trust, fear and belief at that particular time. She took the whole advantage of that particular incident, that particular situation, and even ultimately what happened? He was caught by the police after 2 days, right? And got angry at the fact that there is no honor among thieves. Now we proceed towards another important chapter in your textbook, which is titled as Footprints Without Feet. Let me tell you that this is just an extract which is taken from the novel The Invisible Man, written by H.G. Wells, and it also revolves around a scientist named Griffin, right? Character. What he did? Swallowed his own invention. Became invisible. Just like a transparent sheet of a glass, right? Then we have another character, Mrs. Hall, right? His landlady. Now let's try to understand the story majorly through pointers. So what happens, the story is about a scientist named Griffin, all right, who misused his own invention by swallowing it and became invisible just like a transparent sheet of glass, right? The two boys in the story, how does the story begin? When we are shown that there were two boys on the road and they were discussing something, and suddenly they noticed some footprints which were smeared in mud and they could not figure out the reason from where they came, right? So they got confused actually. So they started following the footprints and witnessed more appearing out of nowhere, leading to chaos. The invisible man in the street is named as Griffin. We have already known, right? Griffin becomes homeless and breaks into restaurant for finding food and shelter. So just because he was homeless, so he ran from one place to another in that invisible state only, and he was feeling hungry. That's why he went to a grocery store and he took all these things, right? He break down there and he steals sweets and wine from a grocery store before settling down to sleep on a pile of quills, right? He oversleeps there, and what happens the next morning? He was being caught by the assistant manager in the departmental store who came there in the morning, and what he started doing after that, he started running here there and made the entire situation so chaotic for them, right? So Griffin initially stays at an inn. Now what is the meaning of inn? You can say a hotel or a lodging, right? A rented place. In Iping village, now this Iping is a fictional image, fictional village, right, which is run by a landlady named Mrs. Hall. So he decided to live there for some time. Mrs. Hall becomes increasingly suspicious of his activities and behavior at the same time, just because they could not see him, and he did not allow anyone to come near to him, to talk to him, or to see him in the room, right? So he refuses to show himself or explains his strange actions, which made Mrs. Hall, his landlady, right, suspicious of his activities and behavior. Griffin's invisibility causes Mrs. Hall to become increasingly afraid of him. So once what happened, when he was out somewhere and the door of the room was left open, so she tried to peep inside, and when she found that the mustaches, the cap, the hat and the coat, the overcoat was already lying there, and suddenly he appeared and he started throwing chairs at her, which made her so sad and confused at the same time, right? So Mrs. Hall tries to confront Griffin about his behavior, but is met with hostility and aggression. How did he show his aggression? How he got angry, how he got frustrated and started throwing things at Mrs. Hall even, right, who came out of the room with so much of difficulty. So when Griffin leaves the inn without paying his rent, first of all, he had promised. Mrs. Hall found the behavior of this scientist to be so strange that she started taking the help of the people in the neighborhood and other community members in order to catch him red-handed. She became suspicious when he was not having any money to pay for the rent, and he promised to pay the next, right, just because he was expecting some payment. But then suddenly he comes with some money and the rent was paid. So this made her even more suspicious. What happens later on, when everybody tried to catch him, first of all, they thought there might be some problem, so they tried to help him, but they could not. And when they tried to catch him, they could not even catch hold of him, just because he was invisible. Then Jeffers, we come to know about another character, Jeffers, who is also important, the police officer who tries to catch him but is knocked unconscious by him, right, just because he was blown. The story raises questions about whether it is scientifically possible for a man to swallow something and become invisible. So there is not much complexity in the story. It's just that we come to know about the scientist named Griffin who swallows his own drug just because he had some bad intentions to harm other people, right, to disturb other people, to make the situations chaotic, right? He went from one place to another. He went to the grocery store, he went to the departmental stores, he went to the restaurants to have sweets and wine, and later he slept on a pile of quills in some store, and where he was attended by some person, by the departmental people in the morning, and he started beating them, and they could not even figure out the reason from where those blows came from, right? So as a result of which, now he decides to change his place, and he went to a Iping village where he stayed at an inn, and initially he did not have money, so he requested the landlady that he is expecting some payment and he would be giving it later on. But immediately then, after some time, what happens? He suddenly pays the rent, which made the landlady even more suspicious, and he tries to catch him just because he found the activities and behavior of this scientist very strange. All right. So then we come to know about Mr. Jeffers, the police officer who tried to catch hold of him, but even he could not catch him just because this Griffin was so invisible, nobody could catch him. And even the story ended on this particular note only, that everybody was confused and the situation became so chaotic, but still nobody could catch him, right? Now, let's now proceed towards the theme and the message, which is actually very important. So the story protagonist is a scientist who got invisible by swallowing the drug, right, that he invented himself, who figured out how to become invisible. Everywhere he went, he made the situation chaotic and he made the lives around him so disturbed, right? So his reckless and irrational behavior caused chaos. The lessons concerns how misusing science and technology can have extreme consequences. It teaches us a very important lesson at the same time. Talking about the message, the pursuit of power and knowledge can have dangerous consequences. He was a scientist. He could have used his invention for good causes, but he did not, right? Rather, he swallowed himself out of his bad intentions and started harming everybody around him. Unchecked power can lead to isolation. As he got isolated, he became homeless and ran from one place to another, right? So scientific experimentation should be conducted ethically. He was not ethical. We can clearly gauge this thing that the scientist cannot be called ethical, right? So fear can drive people to do terrible things. So out of fear, just because he was fearful of not getting caught by the people, when he became invisible, right, he started throwing his hat and mustaches as well. He started giving blows to other people out of that fear and anxiety, right? So now let's proceed towards important short questions that can be asked from this particular lesson. A brilliant scientist though he was, he misused his scientific discovery. Illustrate this point by giving two examples from the story. We can clearly know this thing. We clearly can gauge an idea that he was a brilliant scientist, somebody who has invented such a drug that could make people invisible, right, according to the story. So how he misused his own invention, let's see that. Two instances. He was a brilliant scientist, right, but he used his own discovery for his own selfish reasons. Firstly, after becoming invisible, he stole clothes, he went to the grocery store, he stole sweets and other items as well, which made him a thief, right? Secondly, he set fire to the landlord's house in revenge when he was thrown out of the house for paying rent. So wherever he was staying, he set the whole house on fire just because he could not pay the rent and he was asked to vacate it. So out of his anger, as he was mad with anger, he was so short-tempered that he set the whole house on fire, which should not be done, right? His actions show that his intelligence lacked moral responsibility. He was not ethical. He was not an ethical person, right? So Griffin misused in scientific discovery for his own selfish reasons. Got it? Next question. As you know that this question has been asked twice in 2019 and 2020. Please focus on such questions that have been asked previously in the board exams, right? Recent years question paper, if we talk about 2019 to 25, especially, right? Please focus on these years question papers, right? Then, describe the curious episode which took place in a clergyman's study. What we are talking about, there was a clergyman and his wife. When he ran to his place, right, and he stole there, he was hiding somewhere behind the curtains and nobody could notice him. The strange incident in the clergyman's study was that despite the missing money, they could not figure out, because they could not see the room. They could hear voices coming from downstairs, but they could not figure out the person. They could not even catch the person because he was invisible, right? So, the robbery was so peculiar, it was so strange, because the person was not visible. The thief was invisible, the scientist, right? The clergyman and his wife heard the sound of money falling, but still the room was empty. So, they become so confused. They had become so confused and the situation was so chaotic, they could not figure out who has stolen their money within no time, within just a few seconds. Next question. How was Griffin received at the inn in Iping? Let's see. Griffin arrived at an inn in the village of Iping in winter. It was quite unusual in that season, right? Just because it was winter season that we are talking about, and his unusual appearance set all tongues wagging in the village, just because they found this person to be extremely strange, right? Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife, tried to be friendly with him but was snubbed. She tried to behave in a friendly manner with him. She tried to talk to him politely, but he became frustrated and he troubled her also, right? She excused Griffin's strange habits and irritable temper because he paid her in advance. So initially he had already paid in advance, as a result of which the landlady of the house had to bear all the tantrums that were thrown upon her by Griffin. Alright. Now, coming to the next question, long question type questions. Please have a look at these. Now, this question had been asked twice. First of all in 2023 and 2024, recent question papers. Right? What's the question about? Discoveries of science can be used for the welfare of mankind. What do you notice one thing here? The question is not direct, right? It involves your skills, your analytical skills, your thinking process, right? What you are going to extract from the story. Let's have a look at that. Discoveries of science can be used for the welfare of mankind as well as for destruction as well, right? Everything has its own pros and cons. advantages or disadvantages. Now it's upon humans, it's upon the person who is inventing those, whether he has to use it for good intentions or for his own selfish reasons. Let's understand. How is this applicable to Griffin's scientific discovery? Explain giving examples from the text. How would you give example from the text? Definitely again you are going to explain the same reasons. You have to justify. He became invisible by swallowing his own intention, became as transparent as just like a sheet of a glass, right? So what he did, he went to the grocery stores, stole things there. He went to the departmental store, slept on a pile of quills, and then behaved wildly with other people by throwing blows at them, right? So nobody could catch hold of him just because he was invisible. He even stole money from the clergyman's house, right? And then he set the whole house on fire also, where earlier he was staying in. He had a very rude behavior with his present home lady, right, Mrs. Hall, who excused his behavior for at least some time and later decided to catch him red-handed with the help of other community members. So you have to state all these things. His misuse proves that scientific discoveries without moral values, which is because he was not an ethical person, become dangerous. So please give a close look at this particular question in order to know what type of questions can be asked. All right, dear students. Then we have another question. What is character without conscience? Just like we have seen in case of Griffin. Right? So in one way or the other, the whole story revolves around the scientist, his misuse of technology, and the way he behaved with the people and made situation chaotic. Now, Griffin was a brilliant scientist who conducted so many experiments and later invented a drug that could make person invisible. He swallowed it himself for his own selfish reasons and misused his own invention ultimately. This was a major breakthrough in the world of science, but it got wasted, right? But because the inventor did not have conscious. Why? Because the inventor did not have conscience, right? He was a man of selfish character. Out of his selfishness, he did all those things. He troubled everybody around him, right? And wherever he was going, right? So, a good character cannot be like him, cannot be shaped in the absence of conscience. We acquire the wisdom to choose the right path. He did not choose the right path, right? And followed the wrong path, followed a bad path that led to problems in other people's lives around him, right? So we came across multiple complex situations even in the story. If we talk about the incident at the departmental store, at the grocery store, at the landlord's place, right? And if we talk about Mrs. Hall's place as well, everywhere there he went, he made situation chaotic and troublesome for other people as well. So this question has been taken from CBSE question bank, and you better know this thing, how these questions are important enough for you to understand, right? Next question. Did Griffin from Footprints Without Feet follow the saying, great power comes great responsibility? Not at all. Although this question is open to interpretations, but if you have read the story closely, minutely, right, then you will not say yes, right? So no, Griffin did not follow the saying, with great power comes great responsibility. It was such a huge responsibility which was on his shoulders, but he misused it. Let's see how. This saying means that if one has the ability to do something, so one should make sure to do it for the good of others, for the welfare of the people, for the welfare of the mankind. But he did not do it in that case, right? So after he managed to make himself invisible, he did not use his powers of invisibility for doing something good. Rather, he troubled people, right? He caused trouble in the life of other people. Instead, one of the first thing that he did was to set fire of his landlord's place in an act of revenge. Just because he could not pay the rent and he was asked to vacate the house. So out of revenge, out of that revengeful nature, he set the whole house on fire. He burned that house. Then he stole clothes and food for himself without feeling any remorse. He even attacked and robbed a shopkeeper, clergyman as well. And he also attacked the landlady, Mrs. Hall, out of revenge and out of frustration as well, who tried to be friendly with him, right? So please mention all these events that you see in this story. All right, dear students. Now, the next question. A brilliant scientist though he was, he misused his own discovery. Illustrate this point by giving any two examples from the story. All right. So coming to this answer, although we have discussed it in the short format as the most probable question for this year, right? What if this question is being asked in a long format? Let's see how you are going to answer. Tell that how he just invented such an important drug, but he swallowed himself out of his own selfish reasons, right? So how you're going to explain it? The very first reason, how, which shows that he was unethical, he set the whole house of his landlady. So how do we come to know that he was unethical? This is quite evident from the incident when he set the whole house of his landlord on fire out of revenge. Then the second time happens when he is found sleeping in a store in London. To get warm and put on some clothes, he beats up the shopkeeper and steals money. And he did not even have any feelings of remorse or guilt. After that, he checks into an inn and asks not to be bothered. That's when or thing starts to happen. When he told the landlady not to bother about the rent and regarding any other thing, he would pay the rent ultimately because he was expecting some payment from someone, right? And in the meantime, he committed theft at a clergyman's place, right? The innkeeper and his wife sneak into the scientist's room when he's gone to look around, right? So what happens then? They find that his clothes and hat are scattered around. Out of nowhere, he hears a sniff right by her ear and the hat hits her in the face, and he started even throwing so many things at her. So the bedroom chair seems to move on its own and knocks into her legs. Then it forces Mr. Hall and Mrs. Hall to go from that place, to come out of that room, right? And locks the door behind. These incidents show that the clever scientist abuses his own scientific inventions. So please take a note of all these pointers, what you are going to explain each and every important incident when he became invisible and what sort of activities he did. Alright, dear students, let's see another important question. Discoveries of science can be used for the welfare of mankind. As I just told you that scientific inventions and discoveries should be meant for the welfare of mankind, for the people, right? But not for selfish reasons. How is this applicable to Griffin's scientist discovery? Explain by giving examples from the text. So this is in long format, right? And there are chances that this type of questions would definitely be asked this time as well. Now, Griffin was a researcher. One day, while doing a scientific experiment, he found a liquid that could make people invisible, right? During his scientific experiment, he discovered something, this, and Griffin on the other hand mishandled the liquid. He swallowed it just in order to get invisible because he was selfish, right? Yes, I agree with the statements. We may relate this statement to Griffin, a great scientist who misused his technology, right? However, he was a lawless person. He was unethical, right? Who used his discovery for his own reasons in order to harm other people, right? He did not invent this drug for the welfare of the mankind, right? Rather for himself, right? So he carried out theft, and we can conclude that whether the found thing is useful or damaging is entirely dependent on the users, just like in case of Griffin, right? Just like in case of Griffin. Alright, dear students, I hope everything was clear till this point of time. This story is not that complex, which some students find it actually. Dear students, I really hope by this time you are clearly able to get an idea what type of questions can be asked in your upcoming board examination from these two lessons. Now we are going to discuss something really exciting, as this would definitely fascinate those students who really have interest in science and technology. So dear students, through this particular lesson, we'll definitely come to know how courage, perseverance and determination can transform a butterfly collector into a molecular biologist. Alright, dear students, this story is about a very famous scientist named Richard Ebright. So let's learn what is there in the lesson. Before this, I would like to share some important pointers with you all, on the basis of which questions can be framed in board exams. For example, qualities of a scientist. There can be an indirect question related to the qualities of a scientist, and then you would be asked to relate these qualities with Richard Ebright, right? Role of passion and curiosity in terms of experiments, that can also be asked in your board exams. Importance of mentorship, as parents played a very important role in it, specifically his mother, right, in nurturing his curiosity. Then you have to mention learning from failures, because initially in his few attempts he also got failed, right, but later became a very renowned scientist, right? Then second grade, when he was in second grade, collected 25 species of butterflies. Please remember this particular thing. He was passionate for collection. He was passionate about collecting butterflies right since childhood. Even when he was in second grade, by this time he had already collected 25 species of butterflies. So let's understand the story in pointers, and I'll be explaining you through description as well, right? Now, let's focus. Richard Ebright's journey into the world of science began with his childhood fascination. And what was his childhood fascination? Collecting various species of butterflies. He used to collect coins, he used to collect fossils and rocks as well, right? So his mother played a pivotal role in encouraging his love for learning. So pivotal here means crucial, very important. Ebright's mother played a very crucial role in nurturing his curiosity. She also gifted him a book titled as The Travels of Monarch, which opened a world of science for him, right? And his mother's support nurtured his curiosity and motivated him to conduct more and more experiments that we would also be discussing. Like he conducted so many experiments on different species of butterflies. For example, if we talk about monarch caterpillars, beetles, and viceroy as well, right? So Ebright participated in butterfly tagging, right? Raising and tagging thousands of monarchs as well. Despite a setback of science fair, so despite the fact that initially in his few attempts he got failure as well, he had to meet failure as well, but later he was known to be a very prominent scientist, right, for his discoveries. Then looking further, his research on viral diseases in monarch caterpillars and the mimicry of viceroy butterflies earned him worldwide recognition, right? Ebright's investigation into the purpose of tiny gall spots, right, on monarch pupa led to his discovery of an unknown insect hormone. Please remember this thing as well. These are the important experiments that he conducted and due to which he gained worldwide recognition, right? His findings have the potential to deepen our understanding of scientific experiment and life processes because he invented those, right? He studied about life processes and DNA as well, right? Alongside his scientific pursuits, Ebright excelled academically, also engaging in public speaking, debates as well, and other outdoor activities. Ebright's dedication, competitive spirit, his courage, his zeal to win in life has transformed him, right, from becoming a passionate butterfly collector to a big molecular biologist. Now, let's understand some important discoveries that we would be discussing in detail as well. So, insect hormone during second year when he was in second, what he invented? Insect hormone, cell life and DNA, whose purpose was to find out 10 tiny gall spots, on monarch pupa. So now we would be discussing the theme and the message of the chapter, right, which is based on experiments. The chapter highlights the development of a scientific mind through curiosity, observation, and experimentation. Please remember these key terms. This is all about experimentation. This is all about observation, right? It shows how hard work, perseverance, and the right guidance, especially parental support, can nurture a child's curiosity and can motivate him to excel in his field, right? Whatever he is doing. So it shows how hard work, perseverance, and the right guidance, especially your parental support, especially in the case of Ebright, if we see his mother's support, led him to conduct more and more experiments and excel in life, right? Talking about the message, it conveys a powerful message that scientists are made, not born. Nobody is born a scientist, right? So he became one with constant efforts, with his perseverance and determination. Curiosity, disciplined effort, learning from failure, encouragement are essential for success. It also emphasizes the importance of asking questions and thinking scientifically, just like he did, Richard Ebright did. Now, as I told you that we would be discussing the chapter in such a manner that would leave no stone unturned, right? Now let's discuss so that you may not face any problem in your exam. The story is a biographical account of a scientist, Ebright. He was the only child of his parents, right? He liked to collect butterflies, right? He liked to collect fossils, rocks and coins as well. Alright, talking about her mother, Richard's Ebright, who played a pivotal, crucial, a very significant role in his life, who motivated him, right, who encouraged him a lot and gifted him a book titled as The Travels of Monarch, right, which opened a world of science to him, right. She was a very supportive mother, very close to her son, and when he was in third grade, his father passed away. So his mother was the only constant for him who motivated him in every situation, no matter what. Richard had love for butterflies from the very beginning. So by the time he was in second grade, he had already collected 25 species of butterflies, right, by that time. So please remember the points that I am making you underline here in the class. While you read the text, please focus on these details minutely. Alright. So then his interest in butterfly grew when he discovered Dr. Rakad through the book The Travels of Monarch, which was given to him by his mother. Alright, he caught and tagged those butterflies to help in Dr. Kakat's study regarding butterfly migrations to Central America. He also raised butterflies in his own basement as well in order to study deeper about them. So please make sure that we are discussing the chapter in a chronological order, in a sequential order. So please remember the same, memorize the same in this format only, in a proper sequence, because this is not a fictional one. It is based on scientific experiments. So please remember these, right? So Richard got a real taste of science in the 7th grade when he entered the county science fair, where he presented some frog tissues, right? But he had to lose because he did not conduct any real experiment. So this was a turning point in his life. What he got to know, there was an important lesson which he really learned from that incident, that he should conduct experiment on something exceptional, right? Some real one, right? Richard worked hard on his 8th grade science fair entry. He tried to find the cause of a viral disease that killed monarch butterflies every year, right? So he felt it could be due to some beetle that carried that virus, but he could not get much results from this experiment as well. So Ebright continued to work on several projects through his school days. He tested the theory that viceroy butterflies copied monarch butterflies, right? And that monarch butterflies are not tasty to birds, while viceroy ones are, right? So Richard wanted to see if a bird would eat a monarch, and he found that a starling had eaten all monarch butterflies, right, ignoring the bird's food. What happens then, he tried to find out the cause of those tiny gold spots on monarch pupa. Then he and his fellow student, right, tested on something. They made a device that showed that these tiny spots, gold spots, produced a hormone that led to the fuller development of a butterfly. So what happened, this was such a wonderful experiment that gave him recognition and that gave him a place in the international science and engineering fair. So these are the important points that we have discussed, that I told you that I'll be describing you these many experiments because this chapter is all about experimenting. So dear students, so we have discussed almost all experiments that were conducted by him and gained him worldwide recognition. Let's see the last one. As an undergraduate at Harvard, Ebright considered a new theory about cell life. He wanted to read how cell reads DNA, right? So he and his college roommate James Ronson wrote the papers together for all that things, right? So as we have discussed the entire chapter through short pointers as well, and we have discussed major experiments that were conducted by him due to his mother's immense support. Now let's proceed towards important extract based questions from this particular lesson. Now, his mother encouraged his interest in learning. She took him on trips. This role, mother's role, is very important. That's why we have extract based questions based on that. She bought him telescopes, microscopes, cameras, mounting material as well, right, equipment, and helped him in many other ways. For example, the first question, how did Ebright's mother encourage his interest in learning? By gifting him telescopes, microscopes, and a book as well, that was titled as The Travels of Monarch, right? What impact did his mother's encouragement have on Ebright's life? It made him motivated. He felt motivated, as a result of which he started conducting more and more experiments, right? What does this extract reveal about the role of parental support? So it teaches us a very important lesson, how parental support can enhance learning and can help shape a child's interest and help them excel in life, right? So I hope you could easily understand these extract based questions. Let's now proceed towards important short questions. The very first question being that was asked in CBSE 2021. So what does the book The Travels of Monarch that was gifted by his mother teach Richard Ebright, right? It opened a world of science to him. He felt motivated and wanted to conduct more and more experiments after reading that. So it inspired him to study butterflies seriously, various species as well, and encouraged him to explore more and more about their migration as well, right? Next question, why is Richard called a scientist? Because he used to conduct experiments, he used to research very minutely and carefully, and developed new scientific ideas through persistence and hard work. That's why he was called a scientist. Now the next question that was asked in 2024, the most recent question paper, 2024 and 2025. Why is Richard's mother called the real architect of his success? Because she was the one who supported him in every situation, right? Even at the time of his failure also, right? She had been with him all times. She guided him, provided him with the best resources that she could. She even gifted him a book, The Travels of Monarch, right? And supported his scientific experiments also. So What do we come to know after reading this particular question? That parental support is so crucial and plays a pivotal role in a child's life, right? Now, what was the impact of Richard's mother encouragement of his life? He felt motivated to conduct experiments, right? And helped him become a successful scientist as well, right? Now, this question was asked in CBSE 2025. Please take a note of this as well. Let's now discuss those probable questions from this particular chapter that are likely to be asked in your upcoming board exams. The very first being, what does the story tell us about the making of a scientist? So this is based on title, justification of the title or reference to the title, right? Because earlier he was not a scientist from the beginning, right? He was just a passionate butterfly collector, but his courage, his perseverance, his dedication, his determination transformed him to a great molecular scientist, right? The story shows that a scientist is made through curiosity, through hard work. So you have to mention all the qualities that describe him, right? Ebright's interest in collecting butterflies and his mother support helped him become a successful scientist. So you have to tell that process, how he became a successful scientist, right? Now, how did Richard E. Bright's mother help him become a scientist? Although we have discussed this question, but what if the question is being asked in a long format? Again, you have to describe his passion also, right? Describe his passion in the very beginning, since the very beginning, then his mother's role, right? So as you have read all the pointers and the entire chapter as well, we come to know that mother's role is very, very crucial in this particular chapter, right? So she took him on trips as well. She gave him books to read. She gave him telescopes, microscopes and other equipments as well, so that he could explore more and more. Alright, dear students. Now, as we have covered all 3 lessons in our class today, we are towards the recapitulation part. So please try to understand that we covered these 3 lessons. A question of trust, right? Please remember the important lesson that it shares, that appearances can be misleading. Alright. And 2 major statements, that there is no honor among thieves, and that you must set a thief to catch a thief. Right? Then coming to the second part, footprints without feet, we come to know about wicked scientist. Why wicked? Because he misused his own invention. Got invisible, right? And that lesson learned. Misuse of science and technology can have adverse results, right? Then coming to the third chapter, the making of a scientist. A scientist, it revolves around the life of Richard Ebright, his experiments, Viceroy and Monarch, right? Virus, cell life and DNA study, and about the spots on monarch, and that they secreted or produced special hormone. And yes, please do not forget to mention his mother's role as well. Right? So dear students, I really hope by this time you don't have any single doubt related to these lessons. We have discussed all important questions, expected questions, right, from each of these lessons. And still, my dear students, if you feel you have any doubt or any query, please don't feel hesitant to post in the comment section. We would definitely welcome your query and will definitely reply to all your comments as well. So till then, stay tuned with us on our very PW platform. Till then, have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you so much.